fine, as long as it's not bad. No, the first time I couldn't even. I'm not going to complain this time. I've been complaining. Okay. I'm responsible for that. We need to be consistent. Maybe I need to use my Alfonso.
You can try.
You guys are gonna have so much fun.
And then we could also do yes.
Good evening. Thank you all for making it through that blizzard, taking the sled and actually making it here. I think the bluster about the blizzard was overdone, perhaps. We're really delighted to be here tonight. It's a wonderful collaboration with our colleagues in Hong Kong at Asia Society Hong Kong who have commissioned an extraordinary new work. And it premiered last year in Hong Kong. And Alice Mong, who is the executive director of Asia Society in Hong Kong, will tell you a little bit more in just a moment. I'm Rachel Cooper. I'm the director of cultural diplomacy initiatives here at Asia Society. And I can't imagine anything more important than really using the medium of opera to tell stories that are of today and to use the languages that are of today in this new art form. And what we're planning to do tonight is really give you a kind of sneak preview of the piece. As I think many of you know, the full-length opera will be done at the Orange Sands space downtown on Norfolk on Saturday the 7th. We have a 3 o'clock performance and a 7 o'clock. And it's such an important piece to me because it really reflects the kind of vibrancy and unique perspective that is the Hong Kong of today. And we'll have a chance to explore a little bit more of that. It's also a global story in many ways, and an opportunity to look at the phenomenon of migration writ large, but specifically, particularly women who have traveled in order to support their families and who have become domestic helpers in other situations that are quite different from their own normal one. And the fact that all of us living in this kind of urban morass are so busy with our lives that we don't always take account of who's in the room and our own humanity. And at heart, this is a piece about humanity. So what we really hope to be able to do tonight is take you through some of the works. We'll give you some excerpts. Again, everyone's only been here all together for 3 days. So it's absolutely a working process, and that's what's exciting about being able to commission new work, is that you're in the process. Sometimes can be a little messy, and usually that's really interesting. And I think you'll agree with me, there's so much in this piece, and these are extraordinary artists. So I'm really thrilled that you're getting the first sneak preview tonight. Join me in welcoming Alice Mong to tell us a little bit more.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you all for being here. I arrived yesterday and they were warning me about the storm, and I said nobody may show up tonight, and I'm so glad to see all of you here tonight. I'm delighted that Asia Society Hong Kong was able to commission this opera. The plan was to commission it for our 5th anniversary at our new home. Asia Society Hong Kong was the first center outside of first center of Asia Society's network in Asia. And Asia Society Hong Kong was founded in 1990. So as part of our 30th anniversary celebration that's coming up, this is why Mila here in New York is so important to us. But we first commissioned the opera to celebrate our 5th anniversary, which would have been 2017 when we moved to our new home. Although Asia Society was founded in 1990, we had our permanent home in Admiralty, hub of the exciting Hong Kong today, in 2012. So for our anniversary, we were able to work with Candace Chung, a very well-known playwright, and also has written opera before, collaborated with Wang Ruo and others. And after talking to Candace, and then also Eli, who's here tonight, Eli Marshall, the composer, we thought we wanted to do something original to celebrate the 5th anniversary of our opening in Admiralty in the new home. But it took another extra year working with these wonderful talent. And we felt it was very important to hear the voices of Asia and also hear about the voices of the unknown or voices of the less heard. And somebody asked me why an opera sung in Tagalog, Cantonese, and English. And I always say, why not? Because yes, we've heard opera, and I lived in New York for 9 years before moving back to Hong Kong. Been to the Met, and it's wonderful to hear opera sung in Italian, and even in Mandarin. And I've heard it in Mandarin and also in other Western languages. And why not to hear from the voice of Asia and the contemporary voice of Asia? So for us, it was our first commission work, and we felt it was very important to hear from the voices of Asia. And in our collaboration in Asia Society Hong Kong, we had worked with our Manila Center. In fact, they brought in some wonderful singers when we first opened in 2012 in our new home. And we also have worked with the various other centers. So for us, it was very important that our first commission work was to be a collaborative effort. And that's why we're really excited, thanks to Rachel and thanks to Asia Society New York and our Asia Society San Francisco, that we're able to bring a new piece of work with this incredible artist from Hong Kong, from Manila, from New York, and so I'm really proud that we were able to do that. Okay.
Congratulations. Really, it's so exciting, and to have new opera coming to New York City is a great honor. And really, this whole idea of experimental opera, which is really caught on, it should be also global. And you have really initiated that, so congratulations. I'd like to introduce Eli Marshall and Chu Hei. Eli Marshall is the composer of the piece, and Chu Hei is the director, and Neil Gorin will be conducting. And Joanna Lee will be doing some interpreting. And just so you know kind of where we are, because we've chosen 4 excerpts from the piece. Again, I hope you'll all be there Saturday. But we want to give you a taste and a little bit of a introduction.
Thank you. I'm going to forgo telling the story because we're lucky to have Chu Hei, who knows the story better than I do at this point, to relate how the plot really works and unravels on stage. But what you're about to hear is the climactic moment of the piece, and it really it drives at the heart of the I guess the spirit of the story. Essentially, what it means to leave your own child in one country in order to go and work in another and raise someone else's. At the same time, this piece isn't really just about, it's not only about allowing the voice of a domestic worker to be heard, or at least imagined and heard, but it represents the impossibility of a system and of the economic realities that drive real relationships. You'll meet some of the other characters, but first we have Mila herself, who's really singing at the moment of her maximal impossibility in dealing with this dissonance of what's possible. Would you like to say something about the actual story here?
首先我想今日好希望可以用我自己嘅母語廣東話咧去作為呢個演出嘅介紹。
I want to speak in Cantonese, which is my native language, to share with you this story.
同埋我今日係我諗應該講古仔應該係由我哋嘅編劇阿莊梅岩講會應該係最出色嘅。但係
The story should actually be from our playwright, librettist Candace Chong, but
因為佢啱啱生咗個小朋友，所以佢而家係要忙於照顧佢嘅小朋友。
she just had her second child, second baby. She will be here. 佢幾日之後會到嚇。She will be here in a few days, but she is currently a little bit busy nursing.
咁所以我今日係代佢介紹下呢個故仔。
So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the story on behalf of her.
成個故仔其實係冇咩故仔嘅。
It's a story which is also not a story.
其實係成個歌劇咧係關於一個中產嘅香港一個好普通嘅中產嘅家庭，同埋一個嚟自菲律賓嘅傭工嘅故仔。
The story is about a middle-class family, typical middle-class Hong Kong, and also the Filipina domestic worker that works for them.
成個演出其實係講成個古仔，其實係講緊一個中產嘅家庭，佢請咗12個嘅曾經係請咗12個傭工啦。
13個係咪
？12個傭工，佢炒咗12個傭工，而 Mila 就係佢第13個。
A typical Hong Kong middle-class family, they went through 12 Filipina workers already, fired them all, and Mila is their 13th domestic helper.
入境處已經 blacklist 咗佢哋。
They were already blacklisted by the immigration department.
成個古仔就係講Mila 嚟到呢個家庭，開始去負責照顧呢個家庭，同埋照顧佢哋嘅一個小朋友。
So the story is about Mila landing in this family, taking care of the couple as well as their child.
而呢第13個傭工，呢個家庭嘅第13個傭工仍然係得唔到呢個主人嘅滿意嘅。
However, Mila's performance was not satisfactory still to the couple.
但係佢哋都唔願意再請14個啦。
But the couple was unwilling to actually engage the 14th because they had already been blacklisted.
所以佢哋仍然咧就忍耐住繼續去用 Mila。
So they had to tolerate working with her.
咁Mila 本身係有一個好悲慘嘅一個背景。
So there is also a tragic backstory to Mila.
佢嘅小朋友係曾經係因為某啲嘅原因而喺個河流裏邊死咗。
It was not very clearly written into the script, but basically Mila's daughter died drowning in her own native village.
而 Mila 就帶住呢個咁嘅背景進入呢個家庭。
So that was the baggage and also the history that Mila bore with her as she entered working with this family.
咁成個演出其實就係講主要係講佢哋幾個先，其實都係講緊每一天嘅早餐。
Every scene is about having breakfast.
而
Every day, different days having breakfast.
而主人亦都好唔滿意個 breakfast。
And you will see that clearly the couple were not happy with the breakfast that was served.
但係佢哋都要，因為兩個係我哋香港一個典型嘅中產。香港嘅典型嘅中產就係佢唔可以留喺屋企照顧佢哋自己嘅小朋友。
As typical Hong Kong middle class, both the husband and wife both work. And because they work, they could not take care of their kid. And that's why the domestic worker was so important in such a dynamic.
咁所以喺呢個演出裏邊其實係主要係講緊佢哋要去工作留低咗。佢哋莊梅人會咁寫啦，佢就話佢哋要交低個小朋友俾呢個第13個嘅陌生人。
So the idea is that the couple had to leave to go to work, and so therefore the taking care of the kid is with the Filipina maid. And here in this case was like, we have now given our kid under the care of the 13th stranger at our home.
咁喺某一天咧，就係好不幸地，因為意外啦，因為Mila 係為咗某一啲嘅原因啦，我唔想喺度講啦。
Not telling you and not giving you everything about this the plot yet, but something happened to Mila on one day.
佢係好唔好彩咁樣唔知係咪意外咧，就由佢屋企咧就跌咗落去佢屋下邊嗰個泳池。
And again, it's unclear, and also we do not say clearly whether it's an accident or not, but Mila jumped from the balcony and ended up in the swimming pool of that building complex.
係啦，咁呢個就係成個古仔嘅一個大概。
So this is the synopsis, so you have a sense of where it goes, and this is now the scene 4. So this is end of scene 3.
係啦，咁跟住我哋可以做嗰個
做咗個先嚇。
Measure 119.
So it's time to welcome Stephanie Quintin to the stage.
Next.
So, how should we introduce the next? Would you like to introduce the story first? Yeah. Yeah. So we're starting now with closer to the beginning. As you've heard from Shuhei, this is a really interesting. The libretto that I received was an incredibly interesting mix of tragedy and absurdity, and with a lot more absurdity at first, and then the tragedy kind of comes in where you heard it. So let's get something sort of in between those two things now. By introducing, is everyone, we're doing, this is scene 1 as semi-staged, or? So we'll invite the entire cast. Joanne Shao as Boy. Amanda Lee as Ma'am, Joseph Boutel as Sir, and once more Stephanie Quintin as Mila. And you heard about breakfast already. This is just after breakfast as everyone's trying to get to work.
Measure 183, scene 1.
Wherever it is. Yeah. Time to go.
夠鐘㗎啦。
We leave our son alone with a stranger at home.
係時候交低個寶貝仔俾佢，屋企裏面第13個陌生人。
To trust or not to trust? This is a question.
唔信佢都唔得，入境處已經 blacklist 咗我哋。
Floating stranger we have heard. We learn to tolerate. We invite disappointments.
We sent them back like the others. We won't be able to get afford
To trust or not.
It is no longer a question.
Have to trust.
Or one of us will have to stay home.
Why don't you go on? We'd love to hear the rest of the scene.
Okay, let's go on. Let's start right at measure 235, please. 235 for everybody.
Huwag kayong mag-alala. Pananatilihin ni Mila na malinis ang bahay, na nakatikom ang bibig.
20 taon nang nagtatrabaho si Mila. Walang iyak, walang reklamo, walang imik. Kahit noong pumanaw ang mga magulang ni Mila at nung iniwan siya ng kanyang asawa para sumama sa isang puta. Walang iyak, walang reklamo, walang imik. Kahit noong dumanas siya ng matinding pagsubok sa kanyang buhay.
Kayang-kaya ni Mila na hindi umimik. Habang napapanatiling malinis ang bahay.
At sinisigurong mabuti ang kalagayan ng bata.
And thanks to all of you, and we have more coming right up. But first, I want to thank Maestro Neil Gorin with the Hong Kong Music Ensemble for following our every wish and whim, and really appreciate it. So next, we advance in the story from scene 1 to scene 2, and the boy, who you've been witnessing here, now has a chance to say something or to try to say something.
Scene 2, measure 59.
但係中文啦，乖仔，講中文。
Let's start over. Scene measure 60, we were at
59.
measure. If that was supposed to be, oh, I need some air too, honey.
Oh, 59.
We're in
Got it.
scene
Thank
2,
you.
starting at measure 59.
Sure.
Let's start over again, please. So A natural.
Mama, I need some air.
Oh, I need some air too, honey.
Oh,
但係中文啊，乖仔，講中文。
my little should not stand in the balcony. 我想帶露台灣書啊，媽媽。The little one is as low. 外面啲風吹醒下自己。我個老實到好似嚿石咁，就好似隻木頭公仔咁，唔識轉彎。除咗其他同學啲分數，我一樣嘢都唔記得。媽媽，我真係好辛苦。We could not catch the string. Mama, light as your light. 我真係好辛苦。I said I need some air. He should.
That's it.
I want to read by the balcony. This is what we just heard. I need the wind to refresh my memory. My brain feels as hard as a rock or a puppet that doesn't know how to turn a corner. It can't hold on to anything except everyone's scores in the class. Mama, this gives me so much pain. That's the translation, Candace's own translation of the Cantonese that you just heard from the boy. Now we move on to scene 4, the very ending of the opera. Some of you can take a rest, and maybe we'll do we don't need to do a reset or anything, but you're in a good position. Stephanie, so here we get to hear more Tagalog. Just in a nutshell, finally, after landing in the swimming pool, we have an entire scene more or less underwater. And this is the chimes really take over as these tubes, they're actually aluminum, they're electrical conduit. I can tell you, I can find you a good source if you'd like to know, in upstate. Basically, in my point of view, the timbre of these, the sustaining quality is representing the swimming pool. It's foreshadowing the swimming pool through the entire opera. So let's hear. We don't get a lot of the chimes here at the very end, but you'll hear them. And this is really Mila reflecting on where she's been, and it's the first time that we've ever seen her have something like a rest.
So scene 4, measure 267.
So thank you for all the creative artists. I mean, the Hong Kong New Music Ensemble. Please give a big hand to Neil Gorin. Yeah, you will explore this a little bit more. We're going to have a panel to discuss this, and we have a special guest, Saiza Bakan, who is here, an award-winning photographer, journalist, activist, who has a history herself of what some of this opera is about, and a very important perspective. So I'd like to ask her, while we're resetting for the panel, Saiza, maybe you can come up and you and I can talk a little bit. We were so lucky to have Saiza here. She was not scheduled originally to be here, and then suddenly she was available. She is also one of our Asia 21 young leaders, so we're thrilled to have her here, and to get a perspective on really the fact that this opera, although it is about 4 people whose lives we meet, it is about something that's much larger than that. And I wondered if you could say a little bit about this phenomenon.
So hi everyone. Thank you for having me, Rachel.
Thank you.
So migrant domestic worker migration by domestic workers has been happening since the 1970s. I'm speaking in the perspective of a Filipino. So since 1970s, it has been happening, and since Marcos era. So a lot of these Filipino women are going to Hong Kong. They have the biggest population right now in Hong Kong, almost same as the Indonesian population. So these women are going to Hong Kong to work for families. They work as domestic workers. They serve the family. They take care of their employers' children while leaving their children behind in the Philippines. So basically, these women are I call them the champions between the migration divide. They're the ones who are not just taking care of their families that they left behind, but they are also taking care of families that they serve. So they're at the middle. They're like, the justice. The one in between. The one in between. So they're like the balance. They are the ones that making sure that there's a balance between the two. But unfortunately, with the system that we have, usually it's their families back home that suffer the most, especially the children that they left behind. Yeah. So
I wondered if you could say a little bit more about what you're doing now vis-a-vis some of this, both your photographic work and also your own exploration.
Well, this will be a shameless plug. So I just published my first book about domestic workers in Hong Kong because of my very sexy background story, which is I worked as a domestic worker myself in Hong Kong for almost a decade before I became a photographer, a full-time photographer. So I have been documenting migration in different cities around the world, from New York to Singapore to UAE, but I never really focused in Hong Kong because for me it was too close to home. It's my home, and it's the story of, I decided to focus on the story of my mother. So right now I decided to change the way I tell the stories of migrant domestic workers. Within the 5 years, I noticed that I always document the abuse, the sad things that were happening to these people, to domestic workers, but then I forgot that these women are actually champions. Like, I think they deserve to be celebrated, and this opera is one of the ways to celebrate them. Like, looking at them beyond what they do for a living, and that's why I'm really glad that this opera is happening, because it kind of line up to what I do as a photographer. It's more into like looking beyond the suffering. It's looking to the humanity of these people.
I mean, that's what hits me with this opera, is that it's about the relationships of all of these people. The couple, Mila to the child, and you start to realize, and the languages, in fact, the fact that there are 3 different languages speak to that difference of not being able to hear each other.
Yes.
It realizes it in such an overt way.
Yeah, actually love the language thing because, you know, when with Hong Kong, there's tons of language being spoken in Hong Kong, and inside a home, the smallest unit of a society, there's different languages that are being spoken, and that is one huge barrier for these people to understand each other. So I love that you highlighted that, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's so important to be able to say, here's opera that we're always thinking it's Puccini and all of these grand opera, and here's something that's so intimate and so personal, and yet uses the incredible musicality and dramatic side of it.
And I think it's because it's happening in real life, you know? It's a, how can I say this? It's like an opera with a fact. Like, this is not just something that came out of nonfiction. It's fiction. It's not fiction, it's reality. You see this all the time in Hong Kong, in New York, in anywhere, because this is something that happens in real life, and sadly we don't really see it because it happens behind closed doors. Like, you don't see what your neighbors are doing. You don't know how the other people live because it happens inside their home. So this is like a real sneak peek of the realities of Hong Kong right now, what's happening in Hong Kong. And it's not only in Hong Kong. I did a project about domestic workers in New York, and unfortunately, it's almost the same thing, you know?
Speaking of the sort of 3-dimensionality of the people who are the domestic workers, there was a great story in the, I forget which paper, about one of the domestic workers being very active and actually documenting the protests in Hong Kong today.
Mm-hmm.
So showing that they were really involved in life in Hong Kong. They weren't just in an apartment, but they were a vibrant part of society.
Yes, that's a very unfortunate story that's been making the rounds today about Yuli.
Yeah.
So migrant domestic workers in Hong Kong contributes a lot, not just in a family, not just personally, but also economically. I think there's a report by Time or one of the organizations where let me just say it this way: they're like air, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see them. We don't really notice them. But without them, a society will die. It's similar with air, right? You don't see air you breathe. You don't notice it because it's just there. But when it disappears, it's gone, you die. So that's basically how I see domestic workers, the contributions of domestic workers around the world.
If you could go further, how is the society fuller or more whole with the entire human population better reflected?
I think it's this small, if I could go farther, I would go with a baby step, and that is changing the way we call them. Mm-hmm. We always say domestic helpers, like it's not a job. Like, for example, at the offices, we have office managers, social media managers. Why can't we call them home managers, house managers? Because it gives dignity to what they do, right? If it's just the help, it means, oh, it's free. It's not supposed to be looked at like it's a job. So I think that one small step of changing the way we see or we put a label on what they do, it will change a lot, you know?
And that's not a small step. Language makes
no.
such a difference. And even within the production, okay, domestic
Yes.
worker, domestic helper. What's the difference? What are the innuendos? Is there some bigger meaning? So we were struggling with that as well in terms of the nomenclature, and I think it becomes all the more evident when we're using 3 languages and working with translation.
Yeah, it kind of add to the layer of the opera, the language thing.
Yeah. I'd like to invite some of the creative team to come up so that we can talk a little bit more about how this all has emerged. So Eli, Neil, Siza, if you could take a seat.
Oh.
Alice. Chuhei, no escape. I'm going to stand. Oh, good. I'm going to sit. In a beautiful chair. It's really deeply moving, and particularly at this time, to be presenting this piece here for so many reasons, and it touches on so many things that I think are so close to us that we don't necessarily hold close, ironically. Things that you brought up, Siza. And I just want to start with, I think, Alice, you brought up the idea of this opera it being something that was very Hong Kong. And in a way, it's also very brave because it's such a, it's not the story you usually think it's going to be for an opera. Could you just talk about that?
Yes. It was kind of brave. We in fact, I think we did it because we were encouraged by our, our supporters. Asia Society had a series called Rising Star of Asia, and from that we knew that there were talent, and including singers, operatic singer. So we kind of felt like, well, why not? And but it's the story. I think it very much is Eli and Candace. We came up with several rounds of story, but this one really stuck with all of us in that it was a story we haven't heard that much of in an opera, but we had seen documentaries as well as film, Ilo Ilo, Helper, Sunday Beauty Queen. These were all films that we had screened at Asia Society in Hong Kong. So we felt that there was something there. And it was not surprising later on that I still haven't seen the movie Roma, but those of you who've seen it, and we got the Oscar buzz, it's, so like you said, it wasn't just a Hong Kong story, it was kind of a universal story. And we were just fortunate enough that the two talents, Eli and Candace, worked on it and made it happen as an artistic work. So I'm really, really grateful for that.
So Eli, you didn't go down to Duane Reade to buy these instruments, did you? Or even to Sam Ash?
But it did start with the pieces of paper with the words on it. So when I first saw that libretto, I said, this is very interesting. This is a great play. This is impossible to make into an opera. There's no way I can do this. And then I read it again, and I read it again, and I realized, wait a minute, there's something missing, right? You need to have, a libretto needs to have something you can add to it. Otherwise, it's complete on its own. One of those things is the sound world. So at Duane Reade, I was going shopping for toilet brushes. We don't have enough, actually. So if anyone would like to donate to this production, you can figure out who to talk to. But we have various brushes. We need to probably find some more scrubbers and things. But those are some of the paraphernalia. This is the second time we've done this, kind of tightened it up quite a bit, and I realized how much of that environmental noise can be musical and dramatic and tell the story as well.
So you've got both the kitchen sink, or almost the sink, everything else above the sink, and this industrial kind of piping and it's very percussive. That was a choice. And I was telling you earlier that there was a part of this that reminded me of Filipino kulintan, which I hadn't heard at first, and then I was like, wait a minute. There's some other meeting place here.
Well, okay, these cannot touch brass. I mean, the brass ring of Southeast Asia instruments, that is such an incredibly beautiful, rich material that is centuries old, and
Brass and bronze.
Bronze, bronze rather. Yes, thank you for catching. But the timbre that's present in those richer metals, it is different. It has something on its own. What I have here, though, is the ability to create entire instruments quickly and kind of custom made for your own proclivities in terms of what kinds of pitches you're looking for.
Juhei, you are interpreting this for a visual world. You're creating an emotional and visual world. Can you talk a little bit about what that journey was for you?
It's really difficult to describe it, and actually, I was inspired by Edward Hopper, the painting, and I love Edward Hopper because the feeling of his painting is give me such a cool world. It's cool, really, and no temperature in it, and I love the light in the painting. And when I read the script written by Candace and Edward Hopper's painting, it flowed into my mind. So I decided to use that as a base for our creation. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Why don't we translate?
Sorry.
No, unless some people would like the Chinese. Neil, so you came into this. Tell us a little bit about the discovery for you and pulling this all together.
Well, I was brought in quite early because I've been in charge of molding commissions for a number of years, so musical opera commissions. So it was my job to make sure that all that needed to be done was actually done, both from a production standpoint and from a musical standpoint. And it was, and so I was really thrilled that there's such a great team that Joanne and Alice got such an amazing team from Hong Kong who are incredibly experienced internationally. I'd like to talk for a couple seconds about the sound world, which is what struck me as the conductor, excuse me, not the composer. So when you think of any opera, virtually any opera, until the 20th century, and even in the 20th century, the soul, the heart of the opera is the string section. That's what's giving you the emotion of the piece. This piece is not about the string section. The heart of the piece is the percussion, which plays various roles through the piece. As Eli was just talking about, it represents the domestic world, that the pots and pans, as you see, and some of the instruments are even played by flip-flops that the domestic managers wear in Hong Kong. So there's the domestic aspect of the instruments themselves, which evokes the household. And then when she finally throws herself out the window, and the last scene when she's underwater in the swimming pool, the sound world has totally changed, and we've got the sound of the chimes and of the bells, and so it's of the spirits of the dead, of her dead daughter. So the percussion is the heart of this piece, of course, with the singers. And then the other aspect, which is very, very unusual, I wouldn't say it's singular, but it's very unusual, is that for you musicians in the audience, you know that there are 12 tones within any octave. In this piece, however, there are 24. So it's not C, C sharp, D, D sharp. It's C, C half sharp, C sharp, D, D half sharp, D sharp. So these singers who are so amazing, they not only have to sing perfectly as difficult as anything that you'll find in Alban Berg, but also they've got to be able to tune or distune themselves, if you see what I mean. So as you heard the pianos, They're two pianos, but they're not tuned with each other. They're tuned a quarter tone apart from each other. So when they're playing together, the vibrations are sort of give headaches, which I think was the intention of it. It's a very evocative sound world. And then the singers have got to tune with one piano or the other, and the instruments as well do the same thing. So it's a singular sound world, which is really unlike anything else, especially, and also has symbolic value if you think of the instrumentation itself.
I mean, that's great, because I think one thing, the story in a certain way is deceivingly simple. It's very straightforward. And yet there are all these undercurrents for each character. And that comes out through language, but it comes out very much through the music. And you feel it viscerally, but you don't always realize what's going on. So, Joanna, I know I wasn't going to ask you, but you've done so much on this, and I'm sure all of you were wondering, well, that's great that it's in 3 languages, but I only speak 1. So how are we going to deal with that down at Orange Sounds?
Well, as you had heard from our wonderful director, Chu Hei Chan, the Edward Hopper, the lighting, the coolness of it. So the standard conventional having a huge projection of texts above, and think of it this way, we are talking about 3 languages being sung. It's going to be a very crowded projection, and it doesn't really help in any way the aesthetics of the stage effects as well as the beautiful lighting. And you might know that these days we now have iPhones, a lot of us, and all sorts of cell phones that actually can show many, many things. And LiveNote is actually now an app that would allow you to actually even choose which language to read of the surtitles as they are being projected, and no, sorry, not projected, as they are being beamed into each of your phones. That is how Mila will be performed in New York as well as in San Francisco.
And will the screen just pop into the person behind you's eyesight? How have you dealt with that?
I am now doing some sort of advertising, I guess. LiveNote apparently allows you to actually adjust the size of the text, and not only the language, but also you also decide how dim or how bright you want the text. So the text is in white or a light color, and then the background is actually dark. So I've certainly experienced it myself last year in another production of an opera, was very impressed. And that's why I recommended and got the okay from everybody in this production team that we should go ahead with high technology.
Well, I know there are many more technical aspects that will be part of the production when you see it downtown. I know that when you did this in Hong Kong, you invited a group of domestic managers to attend. And I'm just wondering if you could say something about that before I open it up to all of you for questions.
We certainly did. It was Sunday, our last show. It was a matinee. And it was 4 shows, and we decided the matinee show to invite quite a few of the domestic managers to join us. And afterward, we had a chance to interview a few of them. And I think for me, the most touching moment was when we were, everybody's taking the bow, and Stephanie made a wonderful, heartfelt speech, although we didn't understand it, we didn't have the technology then, though. But what she said, and also we could tell in the audience when we were watching the opera, the reaction from the domestic managers, hearing when she was singing in Tagalog, and Stephanie's speech, there was not a dry eye in the crowd. And then, and it was just afterward, all 4 of them were rock stars. The domestic managers all wanted their selfies taken with all 4 of the stars. So it was just really touching. We knew it was going to be important to share that that Sunday afternoon with them. Sunday's the only day off. And also, many of them, we probably thought they've never heard an opera let alone anak pasang in Tagalog. And so that was just a brilliant move on the part of our colleagues in Hong Kong. So it was really a touching moment.
Well, I'd like to open it to all of you. If you have a question and you'd like to address it to one or another of the people on the stage, and I'm going to have because we are live streaming, I'm going to run around and bring you the microphone. So if you raise your hand, if you have a question.
Hi, thank you. This is really exciting. I actually spent a little time in Doha, Qatar, and I witnessed the same thing. They have so many imported workers, and none of them are very happy. But my question is more about some of the stories I've read about these horrible parents and their relationship with domestic workers or managers. And in the opera, you know, the story of these parents is intriguing because if the backstory is that they've rejected 12 workers and Mila's the 13th, they must clearly be monsters. And I'm just wondering if the opera addresses that, if there's something more complex going on. If we see the humanity of the more humane side of them, or if in fact they are indeed monsters.
I believe our librettist is not here, which is maybe composer?
Oh, well, sure, I'll say something about that. In the show, there are moments of tenderness, but they're purely internal. They each have their own moment in terms of an aria, and it has to do with the pressures they face individually. So there's depth there. I mean, the fact is, most employers of domestic workers are not monsters. The monsters maybe get the headlines, but for me the story is in the impossibility for everybody of such a system to really sustain itself when it's founded on such fundamental inequality. And so that's the question mark that we leave you with.
Any comment? Yeah.
Well, migration is very complex, you know. It's not just about what's happening with the workers, but also we have to understand where the employers are coming from. Like, for example, in Hong Kong, with the economic problems of Hong Kong, housing is very problematic. It's very expensive in Hong Kong. That's why families need 2 incomes, so both parents needs to work. And all these problems accumulates, and at the end of the day, the weakest link on that is the domestic worker. So all their frustrations about their life, about what's happening in Hong Kong comes out, and the weakest link on that, the only person they can put that out or, you know, release that frustration is this domestic worker, because the domestic worker is the stranger inside their home, the one who is the lowest in the system. So it's a very, migration is really, really complex, you know, like in Hong Kong alone, it's hard to say that all employers are monsters, because they are also, as Ila have said, they're part of a system that doesn't allow kindness from all people involved, you know.
Yeah, if one feels also that the child is in such a precarious space because there's so much tension in that whole family. And they're under all the pressures of school and peers and it all. Any other questions? Okay. Okay.
The percussion is amazing. I'd like to know a little bit more about how it was, how all of these 4 parts were constructed, and these are like marimba of magic. Can you talk about the construction of these, and is this a typical thing, or are they made for this production? I've never seen or heard anything like what we've heard just now.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to thank my builder, Nicholas Barker, up in Maine, who when this was confirmed, I was on my way to the Netherlands, where I've been for half a year, and I had to figure out a way to build these in this country, and build them in a way that I could take them on tour. So another impossibility, but Nick made it happen, and and we'll be taking some of this to San Francisco, the sound producing elements, which are the aluminum tubes and, well, 2x3 lumber, which you can get at Home Depot down on 3rd Avenue, probably. And a lot of the bulk you see is frames, which just allow them to be held up and played. So those were the things that required the most amount of work. Also, these guitar boxes, which involve auto harp pins and guitar strings, and the boxes themselves are built from 2x4 and Luan plywood. So nothing very rarefied, and it doesn't intend to be. It doesn't want to be. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Marilyn. Let's talk about the music. I'm a very simple person with simple taste in music. And when I heard about, this Chinese, Tagalog, English opera, for some reason I expected a little bit more Rossini, Puccini, Mozart, whatever. And so was quite pleased but surprised by, the sampling that you provided. I've seen a lot of Western opera, contemporary as well, and at Lincoln Center, some Chinese opera. Was there a bit of influence of some of the tones of the Chinese opera, or the very Westernized Tagalog, Filipino songs, the awit, and in addition to your own taste for contemporary music?
I tried to avoid direct references. On the other hand, I've lived in Hong Kong, and I still am there part-time, and I used to live in Beijing. I've been in other places, and who knows what's under my skin at this point. Before I went to any of those places, I came across a book randomly in my college library called Cantonese Opera by Bell Yong. And I just loved that book, even before I had ever really heard Cantonese opera. Because it's so meticulous in how it describes the language and the phonetic tones of the language and how they transfer into music. And so I was so excited many years later to have a chance to really try this out. And of course, none of that could be directly applied. It's a completely different system compared with this style of contemporary speaking and singing and intelligibility, unless you want to make fun of Cantonese opera, which I don't. So Chuhei has been extremely helpful in that regard, and I look forward to plumbing the depths of more Cantonese in the future. So.
You might talk about the fact that Cantonese is a tonal language versus non-tonal languages.
Yeah, so Cantonese is a tonal language, and it's much less forgiving than Mandarin is. Mandarin you can get away with mixing up tones, as I do in speaking anyway, when setting it to music, but Cantonese is less forgiving, right? It's very hard. Many Hong Kong composers choose to set their operas, to write their operas in Mandarin, yeah.
Hi, I have a question for the composer. So I know that Harry Patch have a opera is a Delusion of the fur. That's also made by like the instrument, made by like normal stuffs. Would you say you're like anything is inspired by one of his works?
Yeah, I mean, I've learned so much by observing. Well, I've seen some of the instruments when they were your new stomping ground, Montclair. They're unfortunately not there anymore, but they were when I visited. Dean Drummond, the late Dean Drummond, was kind enough to allow me to run around for a day and take photographs. I didn't know I would be doing this sort of project out of it, but it's more of a basic inspiration, a point of view of realizing that you can get away with anything, and focusing on the microtonality, of course. The biggest difference between these and Harry Partch's are ones of a kind. He spent months at a time developing and hand carving these instruments, and that is not what I wanted to do. In the end, I kind of did, but not intentionally. I mean, I like the idea of a kind of accessibility. I mentioned to someone else a while ago that when I was my first place in Mongkok was an 11th story. My first place in Hong Kong that I lived was in Mongkok, and 11th story walk up. And whenever I would go to get a glass of beer or a bottle of milk or whatever, I'd walk past. It was an industrial area. I'd walk past lumber shops, metal shops. Brass, that's where my brass-bronze mix-up came from. And all of that was within, a few hundred meters. And that, there was something that stuck with me about that. For me, that is my residence in Hong Kong, to work with these kinds of materials too. So it's all, I don't know where it's coming, it's all mixed up in my mind. But
I'd like to ask one last question, because I feel that it's so relevant to the moment we're living in. Hong Kong, the idea of Hong Kong's vibrancy as a creative center, and that this opera in many ways could only come from Hong Kong. And given what is going on there, I wondered what you could say about, both about Hong Kong and about the creative spirit of people, the artistic community there.
Yes, I should speak in Cantonese. 如果你而家講嘅話，即係之前我哋做呢個 opera 嗰陣咧，係香港未發生咁多事嘅。
When we created this opera, 2018, it was a different place. Hong Kong was very different.
現在嘅香港喺呢段時間，我哋仍然經歷緊一個好困難嘅一個階段。
As you can tell, at this moment, we are also going through a very hard time.
正喺呢個時候，我哋嚟咗美國呢個地方。
During these hard times, as you know, was what's happening in Hong Kong now day to day, but here we are now sitting in New York.
我到達紐約嗰日係28號，係啱啱係感恩節。
I arrived in New York on your Thanksgiving Day, November 28th.
我感受到四周圍都好開心。第二日係好多節日嘅氣氛，好多遊客，大家嘅面上邊都帶住笑容。
I could see, I could feel the joy, the happiness of people, tourists on the streets, shopping, people enjoying themselves.
而我自己喺呢5個月嚟係第一次感受到快樂咯。
In the past 5 months, when I arrived in New York, which was just a few days ago, was the first time that I actually felt happy.
因為喺我嚟之前嘅嗰個月，啱啱就香港發生咗警察攻入去大學嘅事件。
You probably knew that right before I came, that was the time that the police actually went into university campuses.
佢哋圍困咗一間大學幾多日？幾多
They surrounded university campuses, one university campus then another, for days.
呢間大學就喺我屋企嘅附近，其實。
And that university was actually close to where I live.
我屋企嘅樓下就係當日嘅戰場咯。
Right beneath where I live, on the street, was actually a battlefield.
我親眼睇住我望落街上邊，我親眼睇住tear gas 喺我樓下發生。
I looked down 由呢個露台望落去。
由我自己嘅窗口望落去。
Looked down from my window of my apartment, I saw tear gas.
我親眼睇住first aider 用嗰啲車仔嗰啲手推車推住一個俾警察射傷咗嘅傷者，滿身鮮血喺我街經過。
I saw with my own eyes first aiders just with a little cart, and there was an injured person completely covered in blood.
但係呢個傷者去到好短嘅街尾就已經俾警察一大批嘅我哋講速龍，即係個防暴警察成班圍困住。
But that person actually in the cart actually didn't travel far because the police stopped them.
催淚彈嘅氣味由街度攻入我屋企，我閂晒上喺窗，用膠紙貼晒喺窗邊，仍然都聞到催淚彈嘅氣味。
The tear gas I could smell, and I had already closed all my windows and sealed my windows with tape, and I could smell the tear gas.
佢哋而家用嘅 tear gas 係咁樣，我聞到個鼻都喺度攻，就令到我咳嘅。
The tear gas was made of the chemicals that actually really made me cough.
一整晚我係聽住無數嘅催淚彈啊、槍嘅聲音喺我嘅屋企嘅出邊發生，我冇辦法瞓。
I could not sleep because of the gunshots that I can hear, as well as the tear gas being shot.
我想像唔到我已經53歲啦，我嘅生活就喺香港53年。嗰一晚我諗我係一生都唔，我諗直至我死嗰日我都唔會忘記，我好似喺個戰場，我再唔認識呢個香港。
I'm 53. I've lived in Hong Kong 53 years. That night, what I saw, I don't think I'll ever forget, because where I grew up, where I live, it became a battlefield.
但係我仲未絕望，我亦因為有好多嘅年青人細到係我見過係得11歲嘅啫。
But I'm not actually, I don't feel hopeless because I see very young people. I even saw people as young as 11.
佢哋喺街上邊為咗我哋香港嘅未來，為咗我哋呢成年人之前唔夠膽做嘅嘢去努力，甚至冒住生命嘅危險。
They were daring, they were brave, because these were things that adults didn't even dare to do, and they were doing.
直至最近聽到就係印尼嘅之前有個印尼記者俾警察打盲咗隻眼。
And most recently, you probably knew there was an Indonesian reporter who was blinded in one eye because of the rubber bullets.
橡膠子。
Rubber bullets.
而最近就係我即係琴日聽到啦。
And yesterday there was the news of an Indonesian who what happened? Yuli, yeah. Yeah, she was deported.
佢係寫緊，要俾大家出。佢係一個佢寫緊關於我哋呢個運動嘅書。
Yeah, this Indonesian domestic manager was actually also writing, and she was writing about the protests, and she has since been deported.
而家有好多香港人準備係去集結去 support 佢。
So there are people from Hong Kong also who want to help her too.
運動仍然係繼續，所以我只可以講係我嚟到呢一度，我真係感受到自由。我第一次。
This is my first time in America. Here, I could feel freedom.
係好混亂其實。
But also, I can imagine it is also very confusing. It's very, very mixed.
但係我寧願要混亂，我寧願有混亂都唔願意失去自由。
But the thing is, you can say that Hong Kong is now very messy, there's a lot of trouble. But the thing is, you know what? Trouble, but maybe in exchange, we end up with freedom.
係咯，我希望我哋香港未來係唔會絕望，就係咁。
I want Hong Kong to continue and to carry on having the hope.
Thank you. It's hearing artists speak from their heart. The art is from the heart, and the witnessing, and that's what we're doing as participating in the creative process in a work like tonight, which has touched on so many different sides of the world we live in today, and a creative way that opens up these issues in such a way that we receive it very differently. And I think that's what art is all about. So I just want to thank all of the artists who have shared with us today. Let's give them a big hand. I'd like to say that I think this is one of the things Asia Society is here to do. You know, I feel so honored to have a platform like the Asia Society where artists have voices, where the mix and the messiness of the world today can be something that we share in various ways, and I think it's very powerful. I hope that you will find a way to come and join us for the opera on Saturday. There's a 3 o'clock and a 7 o'clock. And I thank you all for coming tonight, and join the Asia Society. Thank you.